Britain has hosted a meeting of foreign ministers as part of efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, meanwhile. More than 40 countries took part in this virtual talk. The U.S. did not attend. Britain wants focused diplomatic and economic pressure on restoring access to this vital shipping route, which has been largely shut down by the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran. Now, the meeting, it's following statements from the U.S. president that countries relying on oil supplies through the strait should show some courage and just grab it. In her opening remarks, Britain's foreign minister left no doubt who she thought was to blame for the energy shock.
We have seen Iran hijack an international shipping route to hold the global economy hostage. And that Iranian recklessness towards countries who were never involved in this conflict, which we and 130 countries across the world have strongly condemned at the United Nations, is not just hitting mortgage rates and petrol prices and the cost of living here in the UK and in many different countries across the world. It is hitting our global economic security.
And from where I'm joined now by our Brussels correspondent, Teri Schultz. Teri, how important was this meeting?
Sarah, I think it was important. Anytime you get some 35 foreign ministers together to talk about something that is hitting their populations so hard as this blockade in the Strait of Hormuz is right now, it is important. It is the opportunity to really discuss what tactics they have at their disposal, what resources, military or otherwise, they have that they could bring to bear to open up the shipping lanes if necessary. It's just an important time to clear the air. Now, of course, the United States wasn't one of these 35 countries, and it could have been useful to hear what the United States is planning to do. As you heard from your previous guest, it is not at all clear, not even to the allies. On the other hand, since the Trump administration has done virtually nothing except criticize its allies and not brought them into any sort of planning, that might have also been a waste of time to have an American representative there.
Teri, do you have the sense, from the politicians that you're speaking with and also the statements that they've been making, are European countries relatively aligned on how they want to position themselves in this crisis, or are there divisions behind the scenes?
It's really hard to know, again, because the United States has not made clear what its plan of action is. What we have seen until now is that Europeans are not willing to go to deploy any assets while hostilities are going on. The United States doesn't want to put its own navies, doesn't want to put its own people in the line of fire. And so Europeans definitely don't either. They feel like they didn't cause this and that their people shouldn't die for this. Now, they're pretty much aligned on that. It remains to be seen what countries are going to be willing to do when hostilities cease, and that is the time period they're talking about, being willing to send military assets to help clear the shipping lanes once the war has ended. And we don't know yet. It's just too early to say. So they can sit in a room and talk about hypotheticals. What would we do if the U.S. does X or Y? But again, they really don't have inside information. And I've heard this from officials even speaking off the record. They do not have any idea. The U.S. is not sharing anything about their plan. So it's hard to say what page anyone is on at the moment.
And you recently interviewed the Estonian foreign minister on his country's position. Let's have a listen, and then we'll get your feedback thereafter.
U.S. has not asked anything, so that's the case. So if U.S. our largest, strongest ally in NATO as well, we have U.S. troops in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. If they ask our support, of course Estonia is considering this support. But there is no ask. There is no actually the understanding what is the final goal, what we should do there. Now we see as well that a couple of countries will say that this is not our war. They are now considering the coalition after the war to demining the region and whatever. So I think that we need to stick together. And of course, we didn't start the war, but this war directly is, infecting us as well.
That's a relatively supportive message. I mean, it seems clear there that Estonia would consider supporting the U.S. if asked. What do you think he might be prepared to offer, Teri?
Yes, That is quite interesting. Estonia, and Margus Tsahkna himself there, the Estonian foreign minister, was the only person I've seen come out and say, you know what, we are willing to consider a request for help. And I should say to our viewers that was bouncy because we were on a train coming back from Ukraine, so we don't generally have such a uneven video. But those were the circumstances under which the interview took place. And he said, look, we felt that we needed to be very forward in telling the U.S., yes, we'll be there for you. And then it's even more surprising that the U.S. does not come back with a request and instead criticizes allies as if there had been a request that has been rejected. So Estonia is a very interesting case here. Now, what does Estonia have to give? He said, we're not that far yet because the United States has not responded to us. It's a very small country, 1.5 million people, a small navy, some planes for its own domestic air force, but it's not clear exactly what Estonia would be willing to give. He said the sentiment, the willingness was the important thing for his government.
DW correspondent Teri Schultz. Thank you, Teri.